Hi, listener. This is From Ideology to Unity, a spiritual journey where we let go of ego and ideological doctrine in favor of meaning, purpose, unity as a whole. Wait, sure. I'll just I'll make do with that. I stumbled over it, but you can have it be natural, listener. Uh, I'm with Gary Hartley from the By the Chalkboard podcast. You might have heard it before, but if you're new, I suppose it's quite a humble podcast. It's about conversations with people, lessons for life about how to live a good life. And he's Gary, he believes in the law of one, but I don't think that's the main focus of his podcast. I get the impression that it's just him trying to help people in his unique way. And I hope you enjoy the conversation because I know I will. All right. Hi, Gary.
Hi, Nick. It's good to talk to you again.
Yeah. So, what was it we had a brief chat beforehand. What was it we decided that it might be good to talk about or at least start on?
Man, you immediately brought up something that's very interesting to me, and it's a book called A Course in Miracles. And I man, I'd be glad to talk to you about my experiences with that. Um, I we'll just jump right into it. I
Yeah.
I discovered this book, A Course in Miracles, several years ago. I can't even remember what year, 2016 or something, and I can't tell you where I found it or how it came to me. Um, but it had a pretty dramatic effect on my awareness of life going through that, and it's not just a book to read; it's a course. There's the portions to actually read, but there's a daily lesson. There's 365 daily lessons to go through as you're reading the book. And I went through the whole thing. I did the whole course. I was committed to doing it. And I went from the beginning all the way through it, did all 365 lessons. And I'll tell you right now, it took me a whole lot longer than a year. It took me a year and 7 months because
Wow.
it's too deep. It unwraps too much, man. Um there were times I would just get angry. I mean, this rage would just boil up within me at what I was reading, and I would have to put it down for days or weeks. I had immense conflicts with people out in my circle of friends and acquaintances because of that book. I lost friends because of that book.
Could you backtrack a little bit and let's go to the first point at which it started bringing up negative emotions within you that you didn't expect?
This is what I discovered through that is that when your own illusions of life start coming unraveled, like your own beliefs about things, we come to conclusions about things. We come to conclusions about ourselves, right? I am this, or I am not that, or I am capable, I'm not capable. We make up things in our mind about our own life. I made up a lot of negative things about me in my own life, my own beliefs, my own understanding. Um, but I made these things up. And when those things start to come unraveled, I believe so strongly in these things that it causes kind of a turmoil inside. Like, oh, it's just like if you and I were having a conversation and you said, well, I think this is true. And I'll say, well, that's not true. You get that little thing inside you that kind of gets
Yeah.
upset for a moment,
It's
like, what do you
identity.
mean? What do you mean? That this isn't true? You know?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm sure a lot of us have been there, especially it's a bit like ideology, really. It's what an identity. It's just like we're attached to a certain view of ourselves and reality, and like if that's challenged, it triggers fight or flight. That's my explanation.
Yeah. So I experienced that going through this book, A Course in Miracles, and because it really gets deep into things, it really unravels. At least it did for me. My own illusions to get to the truth of my own life, of me, who I am, and I was it had a fantastic transformation of my life in a lot of different ways, but it was also difficult.
Right. So what are the main things that you were afraid of?
Yeah, that's a good question because it deals so much with fear. A Course in Miracles deals a lot with fear and dealing and unraveling this idea of fear in your own life. Um, I think I was fearful of, and now it almost seems strange to me to be fearful of that, of just being myself, being open and transparent, and living life as me, with no apologies and no disclaimers. I don't have to give a disclaimer about my own way of life,
Was it about how
how
people might react to you?
yeah, I used to worry about that so much of what kind of reaction I was going to get without I don't know why. I was always kind of shy and insecure my whole life about that, even when I was a kid.
So what is that feeling that you used to get when you're a kid, when if you were judged or criticized for something?
Feeling, I would just, it was like I would hide. Maybe it was the uncertainty of knowing how to respond. I didn't know how to respond when things like that happened. There was this uncertainty. I'm kind of slow to respond to things like that. And, I've learned over time that silence can be a great response. I don't have to respond immediately and do something right now or say something right now when someone brings something up. I can be silent. I can be still. I can take it easy and let the response rise naturally within me. But the expectation, I had this expectation in myself that I always had to maybe say something or respond immediately
So you're
to,
defensive.
hmm?
Were you defensive?
Uh, yeah, well, I was defensive in maybe my own way. My defense mechanism in that was to, kind of run away, hide within myself, avoid conflict, avoid hard conversations.
Yeah, that reminds me of myself when I was like an early teenager, an adolescent sort of time. Like I had bad social skills, so I didn't have confidence either. So often I just I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. Like even when I felt attacked. Interestingly, later on, I started resorting to verbal aggression because I felt like I was standing up for myself. Written aggression as well, I suppose. um, but yeah, and what you said reminded me of something which I looked. I got the Course in Miracles book today. Actually, funny enough, I ordered it like I don't know how long ago. It took a while because I think it came from America. And I looked in a random page, but I asked for like my higher self to guide me to a page. And I read out what I found because it seems related. So it's if I defend myself, I am attacked. But in defenselessness, I will be strong. And I will learn what my defenses hide.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's powerful, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. And that's one of the things A Course in Miracles teaches is what true defense is. That and it very much comes from a Christian perspective. Because it's written in a way. I don't know if you know the background or not. Do you know the background of A Course in
I know
Miracles?
the
Kind of how,
basics, but go ahead and explain it.
and I can't remember the woman's name. I would have to actually look it up again. But
Helen,
Helen Schumer or something like that.
yeah, uh, Schueman.
Schumann. Okay. I believe she was like a secretary at a university or something. And she started hearing a voice talking to her. And I believe the voice was saying, "This is A Course in Miracles. Write this down." Something like that. And I believe she kept silent about it for some period of time because when you start hearing voices, you don't want to tell anybody, right? That's kind of
Yeah,
weird. And eventually she confided in someone, and I think she got the best advice that she could get. And the person, I think, was a professor maybe at the university, I think, something like that. And he said, "Well, why don't you just write it down and we'll look at it?" And so she did. And it comes across as Jesus talking to her. So it's written in the first person where he's saying, "I," telling her these things. And she wrote these things down, and it became this, what's called A Course in Miracles, um, describing it as a required course. Not that, and it says that not that everyone will take this required course with this book, but A Course in Miracles is a required course for life to understand a greater aspect of life. Defense is one of the things that it really unwraps in there, that you don't have to defend yourself, um, because you don't know what you're trying to defend. You're trying to defend your own illusions and beliefs that you made up in your mind. And what you are created to be needs no defense.
yeah, absolutely. So, what are the tenets that clashed with your existing views at the time?
Well, I have I was born and raised in a pretty conservative church environment here in America. And some of the things in the course, of course, clashed with some of the traditional teachings, maybe that were still a part of my, oh, part of beliefs, I guess, perhaps, because it unwraps things in a whole new level. Well, for instance, um, in the very beginning of A Course in Miracles, it gives the summary. It says, "This is the summary of A Course in Miracles. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God." Ooh, nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. And so
Right.
that touched me here inside, like in my heart. I'm like, ooh, I got to know more. I want to know. That's really intriguing. And so it that's a summary of A Course in Miracles, is that what's real needs no defense because it can't be threatened at all. And what is unreal doesn't exist.
Right. Well, I noticed that it was written before the raw material was.
Yeah, I think that's
The early
correct.
70s, like 1972 or something.
I think it was published then, right? I think it was written over a period of like 9 years. It was several years that it was piece by piece given. And then it was edited. It was edited just enough in a way that um, where it looks like it's written to whomever's reading it, because the original unedited version is it's more, I don't know, personal, like the way it's written is like Jesus is talking to her in some of those things, and they kind of edited it like everybody needs to see this and read this for themselves. So the main book, you like the one you have, the blue one. Um, yeah, it's kind of the edited version.
I haven't got you got no, I haven't got the blue one. I've got the
Oh, it's
brown
not
one,
blue.
the
Okay,
complete
brown.
and annotated edition.
Oh, okay.
I made sure to get that one because someone in the comments on Amazon was like, "Don't get this one. There's another one that's better."
Oh, okay. I got
Although
the
I'm
blue
not
one,
sure.
which is the edited version. It's made for any, whoever is reading it to go through. Um,
Does it
yeah,
does it talk about shame?
shame. It probably does. I can't remember if that particular subject is in there, but it is in a way because that's still related to fear
Yeah. So why
and
do people defend? Is it they're afraid of that basically identities or ego, what we're attached to, we're afraid of that being challenged. And so because we feel like it's us, we feel like we're being attacked and we're in danger, fight or flight. Yeah, that sort of mechanic going on. And I don't think I'm doing the concept justice though.
I I learn more about that all the time. It was interesting. Because I told you I went through A Course in Miracles. I decided to go through it again this year to just reaffirm and remember more things. And so I just started it over January 1st. And it reveals more and more things all the time that I need to see. And here's my thought on that. And A Course in Miracles goes through this. We're creative beings, and the way it describes it is God is a creative being. You are an aspect of his creativity in a way. And so because God is creative, we're creative also. We like to create. Sometimes we miscreate, but whatever it is we create, we believe strongly in it. So if we create things like shame and fear and illusions in our mind, we tend to still believe in those things very strongly. It must be real. Fear must be real. Shame must be real. It must be a real thing. And when we start coming to an understanding that it's not real, it creates a conflict. Wait a minute. I believe this thing was real. It's not real. Now something has to come undone in that. And so sometimes this conflict with learning to, or unlearning, as A Course in Miracles describes, that you're more unlearning than you are learning. Uh, you start realizing, oh, you know what? Fear is completely made up in my mind.
Hmm.
Shame, it's completely made up in my mind. I'm shameful. Why? Well, I completely made this up. I made up all this stuff.
What about
Uh,
trauma? Does it deal with traumas you've dealt with and how to heal that and how that makes us behave or
in a way, it seems more focused on uh, because I that's a great question because I still have questions about things like that. That what like sometimes events happen. No, it's more personal where it really unwraps personal beliefs about you and your own aspect of life and what miracles are, what their function is. I think it unwraps it beautifully.
what is a miracle?
You have to read chapter 1. It's in the first chapter.
What would
I
you like
can't.
to say about the miracle subject that doesn't spoil it?
Oh, it's not to spoil it. It's just that it's so. I in a way, it describes miracles as an effect of love.
It's miraculous, which means it transcends regular expectation, but you can't get that without love. Um,
Yeah, that it appears to, do something different than the normal physical laws that we observe. But the purpose of it is always, this unity.
Mm.
One, as it describes, one son of God, one child of God, recognizing its equal value with another child of God.
I have a question. Is this valuable as a way to unite? How to put this? A way to introduce or share what you could call new age ideas with people, Christians, and people from the West in general, who might not be receptive to, say, Buddhism in the same way.
The only way I can answer that is when someone is ready for it, they'll know. I received immense. I was kicked out of church because of that book. Essentially.
I suppose they felt challenged in the same way you were.
Yeah, I don't know. It really surprised me. I was in the middle of going through a course and it was changing so many things about my understanding of life and about forgiveness. I learned more about forgiveness through A Course in Miracles than I had ever in my entire life. And I thought it was wonderful. And I kept praying to God through the whole thing, like, okay, I am ignorant and blind. I really need help understanding. So I would pray, please, for guidance. And if I'm off base, let me know. Well, had this confrontational meeting with some of the leaders at this church that was attending here, and it was very surprising because I didn't know the meeting was about that until I got there. And suddenly it's about this book that I'm reading, which I had talked about a little bit with some people, but more conceptually. I would discuss some of the concepts just with a few people that I knew at church. And man, it was just like, this is from the devil. This is rat poisoning. That's the words that was described. And it really set me back because I didn't know the meeting was about this. And I'm in the middle of the course at the time. So I'm still uncertain about some things and certain about myself. I literally put it down for 6 weeks after that, going,
Was it a
okay.
test?
Yeah, I think so. Well, it was, yeah, it was a test in life. I put it down and just spent time stepping back, going, okay, I can be deceived. I've been deceived with a lot of things in life. I'm just going to step back. If I am deceived, I know that I will be shown, and I'll throw it away. I don't mind throwing it away. But if not, I'm going to keep going because up to this point, I think it's been really valuable. But it's okay to step back from something and just leave it for a while and really look. And so I did that because of that meeting, because I wanted to make sure. And it was also having deep conflicts with my marriage at the time. My now ex-wife, she hated it. She didn't like that book at all. It was really conflicting to her. Didn't want me to talk about it in any way. And that was some of the struggle I went through, because here's my wife didn't like it. My church didn't like it, but something about it when I was going through it was really having a profound effect on my heart, on my understanding of life. And I wanted to keep going. And so eventually that was the decision I made. Like, no, I'm finishing this. I'm going through it because this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Wow. I mean, so I'm looking forward to reading it, I suppose. Yeah, just a bit a day.
Well, you and I have had a number of conversations. So as you're reading it at some point, let's have another conversation about it. I'd like to hear your thoughts and what you're experiencing about your own life like what's coming unraveled, what are you seeing and stuff. Because there's another man I know here where I live who he ordered a copy last week. He started it, so it's someone I know. He said, I just think it's time. And so I've got two people who have kind of started it here this year to get some feedback from and see what you guys think.
Yeah, well, it's interesting when it arrives for me because in the last week I've been having breakthroughs for, well, it depends on different levels of breakthrough, but I've been having breakthroughs recently, especially in the last week. And one of the tests, I suppose, or one of the issues was, because I used to have a problem with arguing with people. And so what I got faced with is that it seemed that a return of that temptation was coming into my life again. Like more suddenly, there were more opportunities for me to be threatened, defend myself, and engage in arguing because I used to do that a lot. I used to have my views and I used to feel threatened by these other ideologies and I used to regularly argue with people. And I suppose maybe it helped temporarily fill the void in my heart that was depression. Um, but so I had a big progress because I saw how far I'd come because I didn't get drawn in like previously. And I talked to someone I do Reiki with, or someone that does Reiki for me, and they said to me that when I described it, what came to them was the idea that it was a test, and that's what I said pretty much simultaneously. So I passed the test because I noticed that it was a test, and also that I didn't, I behave how I have done previously. And we had that discussion last night, and now, of course, in Miracles arrives. That timing to me is that synchronicity, right? I feel like there's a timing to. I mean, our lives are a journey. Well, the way I see it now is like, the hero's journey idea, where it's like a game board of life. And on the hero's journey, once you've learned a lesson, you just go to the next one, in a sense. And it's dealing with your karma that you built up in many lifetimes. And everyone's at a different spot and there's different karma. So what these lessons are might be different. But yeah, and it's really fascinating to me that A Course in Miracles is arriving now. So this must be important. And I feel like a lot of people would benefit from it.
I think so. One of the things I would recommend, since it's a course and it's the way it's written, is do it the way it's written, meaning do the daily lesson and read as you want to read. I ended up finishing the lessons about the time I finished the book. I think there's 31 chapters. It just happened that way. I just kind of let it flow naturally. When I wanted to read, I would. I had to read stuff over and over and over, the same thing sometime because it was so profound to me. Like, wow. Um, and I know you'll do the same thing. There'll be things that you'll read and go, wait, I've got to read that again and again because it just, wow. But definitely do the daily lesson. And some of it may not make sense at the beginning. It didn't to me. But it's all tied together. And A Course in Miracles actually says that the daily lesson is tied to the reading of the book, even if it doesn't seem that way. It's very important to do that. So I would really encourage anyone who wants to do A Course in Miracles not to just read it, but to actually go through it the way it's written. It's beneficial that way, and it was for me.
How did it transform your idea of Jesus?
It definitely challenged that because there's a number of places in there where, um, as it's written, he is describing things that he said. Like, when I said this, this is what I meant. Some of it's really profound and it's fantastic. There's other aspects of things that I just it challenged a lot of things, I believe, not only about, well, I don't know if it challenged things about Jesus, but of understanding like the crucifixion in a much better way. Um, I mean, the greatest thing it challenged was my guilt, because guilt is like fear. It's like a shadow. Okay, it's not real. It doesn't exist.
What were you
That
guilty of?
do what?
No, carry on. But
That the premise of it is that God is light, only light, and like the sun shines its light, and the sun has never seen a shadow. To the sun, shadows don't exist because it can't look at one and see it. Because the moment it looks, the shadow's gone. There's that the shadow is simply the absence of light, the blocking of light, if you will. And that's what sin is. Sin and guilt is simply your belief in something that's real that to the light is not real at all because it doesn't exist.
surely, in my perspective, God is everything, and that includes darkness. Like the idea of, in the idea of the Jungian sense of, well, not so much what he believed in, but when he explored the idea of God in a range of different cultures, and what he came to is this idea of, he's also explored the Gnostic idea of Christianity as well. And there's this idea that all of creation, the dark and the light, is all part of creation, and that the darkness is real. It's part of creation. It may be in some ways um, kind of dishonest inherently, and like it's like rebelling against yourself. It's kind of crazy in a way, but I feel like there's an aspect of reality that is that way. That there are just some parts of God that are that way, and some souls are those bits of God that are dark. Now, I mean, no, I don't know. Maybe my perspective will change as I read it, but I do feel like there is a darkness is real in a sense. It symbolically, like service to self, for example, exists. Right? There are people who are, or at very least, they choose that path. And in some ways, the universe grows from it because it's catalyst for those who are of the light. Right? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's a deep subject. um, I have to look at it, I guess, from an individual looking at myself, because I can look at the world, I can look at creation, see darkness and light. Perhaps it's duality, and I think a course describes it as the result of the separation, what the Bible describes as, the the Garden of Eden and Adam and Eve, uh, sinning and being kicked out of the garden as an illustration of that. Um, but I have to look at it from my own life, that the way I've seen this life was in a way of duality. I would see some things good, and then I would see some things bad. meaning I would see, oh, I'm okay doing this, but then I have this side of things, the shame side, the sin side, the guilt side, where there's always this duality. So I would see myself in this duality kind of way. The way the course, A Course in Miracles describes it is, and it's designed to unwrap your belief so you only see this creation, meaning you, this you, as only one way, as innocent, as a perfect creation, as completely capable, as capable as the creator, because the creator created you completely capable. To only see yourself that way. And the more you see yourself that way, you see others that way. The more you see yourself as innocent, you see others that way. The more you see yourself as capable, you see others that way. And you reinforce that in them when they don't see it themselves. And that produces what A Course in Miracles describes as miracles.
Okay. So I could defend my perception of things that I've gotten from the law of one. And I could be like, no, 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 that's wrong. It's not matching that. What I feel like I'm going to do is I'm just going to go with what resonates in the law of one and what resonates in the Course of Miracles and whatever. And it may will be, well, if every perspective is, what's that phrase? Everything is something like everything is real except, what was that thing?
Oh, the summary that it gives.
Yeah.
Yeah, the summary of A Course in Miracles is nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God.
Okay, so I don't need to be threatened by a subtly different take on things. It might, like, for example, say the ego just doesn't exist. Or I might say, I don't know for sure if it says that. Or it might say that darkness doesn't exist. It's just simply an illusion. It's not really real. And the law of one might be like, okay, well, there's polarity. So the darkness is a part of the overall whole, even if it's ultimately a distortion. And I can look at both of these things. Well, if I take the first part, nothing real can be defended. Simply, I could take, there are lots of different perspectives that we have. They're all true, right? But we don't need to defend one perspective in the face of another. Because if we were doing that, the whole thing, what we're defending would be shown to be an illusion by being defended in a sense. Or at least our perception of it would be fake. The other part, though, is that nothing imagined isn't real. No, that wasn't it. Remind me again.
Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists.
Nothing unreal exists, which means nothing imagined doesn't exist. Which means if you've imagined something, it kind of does. In this sense, like a novel, a fantasy novel, the world might actually exist because it's been created, right? Maybe it does. By that logic, it does. And so, in a sense, what it says is that everyone's got a unique perspective of the nature of reality, I suppose. So we can have different angles or different distortions on the subject matter of New Age subject matter. No, New Age is a label. Whether you're calling about the Law One or the Course of Miracles or what have you. So that way we don't have to have one of them be the doctrine and another be wrong. And I don't think Jesus would want us to be taking one as correct and one as false. Does what I'm saying resonate with you?
Yeah, one of the things I've learned from A Course in Miracles and other material I've read, I guess, is um, I don't come to any beliefs or conclusions anymore, because when I was younger in church, I came to beliefs, or this is what we believe. Well, when I came to a belief, I came to a conclusion. Now my cup was full and there was no more room for learning. But when I don't come to any conclusions, I'm always open to life, because there is no conclusion. There's no end to learning about life and becoming aware of life. At least in my perspective, there's not. There's always something new every day, every moment, everything I learn, it just opens up something new. And so I never come to a conclusion about anything. I never come to a conclusion about anyone. How can someone come to a conclusion about just you, Nick? Your life continually expands.
Yeah.
It would be foolish to come to a conclusion about you, because there's always something more. There's always something interesting. There's always something that can expand.
Yeah.
So I don't come to any conclusions about life, but I learn to not do it with this life first. I don't come to any conclusions about this life, because how do I know what's going to happen or what I'm going to know or see or learn? I don't. And I don't know about anyone else either, or about what's coming today. So when I go into something like A Course in Miracles, I just keep everything open. Like, let's go see what I can see, and just go. And I know the truth of life that I need to see. It will come to me. I will become aware of what I need to see and look at.
Yeah. So when I said at the beginning that you believe in the law of one, it didn't resonate. Something felt off when I said it, and now I know why.
That's why, because I don't come to a belief, a conclusion about something. I always keep my life open to seeing what is new.
Yeah, that's increasingly the awareness I'm coming to as well. And so there need not be a contradiction just because something I'm reading in the Course of Miracles doesn't resonate as my truth, because my truth is simply what I see, and that can expand and shift over time, whatever time means.
Yeah, because you have everything you see is from your perspective, right? You have a unique vantage point in the entire universe. You look from where you see from. No one else sees from where you see from. It's completely unique to you. That's
Why is
that's a fabulous thing.
now what is the nature of our unique spark, right? Because if God is split up into many pieces, that that's one way of putting it anyway. I'm not sure if that's the best way to put it. Does that mean that we're each different? Um, we're all slightly different bits of God, or does it mean that we all started out as identical pieces of God? And then there's the issue of the history of our soul, the experience that we've been through in many lifetimes may well give us a unique footprint too.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I
Was
think
it
I've
too
talked.
long?
No, it's this is the fun part about life to me, is to continue to look at the possibilities. You talked about the possibilities of past lives. I've read a lot about that myself. I have no awareness of that for me, meaning if there's a past life, I've never seen it or been aware that that's the case. I've read a whole lot and know people who say that is the case. They do remember things. Okay. I have no judgment either way. I am open to the possibilities. That's possible. It's not in my awareness, but I keep the possibility open because I don't know. I don't come to a conclusion about life because there's no conclusion to come to. There's no end to
Is
what to know about life.
is there a way to not have a conclusion about something, but still learn about it, even if you haven't experienced it yet, and kind of have it as something to draw upon without being attached to? Is that a thing?
I think I think we do that with everything, don't we? If you meet someone for the first time, you can observe things. You can come to conclusions about them if you wish. That's very limiting. But if you can make observations about them. Oh, they look this way, they speak this way, they like this, they don't like that. Those are observations, those are perspectives that you're observing. But to never come to a conclusion about that person and realize that they have this unlimited possibility in life just like you do, it enhances your life and theirs, and you can enjoy that together. When you limit someone else, you limit yourself, you limit your own perspective of life, you limit your own possibilities. And so I always keep myself open to with people I meet, like, because I'll make judgments, I'll recognize them when they come up, like, oh, that person's negative, oh, wait a minute, but that's not the possibility of life. That's just one little aspect of their experience right now or my experience right now.
Right.
But
So
I know
awareness.
their possibility of life is to become vibrant and open and encouraging and loving. I know that possibility is within them because it's here. It's within me. So if I always keep that possibility open, it leaves me judgment free about them to, and we can explore a greater life, the possibilities together if they wish.
Right. So it's an openness, it's an acceptance, it's, well, there's this other one I said. I kind of interrupted you and I forgot what that was. Um, and yeah, so I suppose that's how we, as long as we're not, as long as you remember that everyone, including us, is ever changing, ever expanding, unless they choose to contract, that is, or he's has infinite potential. Like, we can observe things, and that's okay as long as you have the awareness that that's what we're doing.
I think that's a good way to put it. Like, okay, I'm I'm observing. If you see someone's irritating, for instance, or at least that's how you've seen them in the past, you could simply say, "Okay, I see this. Uh, this isn't ideal. They're being negative toward me like they have been before. Except this is not the only possibility with them because it's not the only possibility with me. And so instead of seeing them this way in negative, I'm going to keep myself open to their greater possibilities and and my own at the same time. If I limit someone else's possibilities, I'm limiting my own because then I'm coming to a belief, a conclusion. If I keep my uh, my aspect of life open to everything, to the possibilities, I'm doing the same with other people because other people limit themselves, right? They do the same thing that I've done. They create illusions in their own mind about their limitations and their possibilities. Like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm worthless. Well, if you tell me that, I refuse to agree with you. I will not agree about with your own illusions that you made for yourself because I've agreed with my own for too long and the possibilities kept opening up. So I always try to interact with people that way. People often come to conclusions about themselves. You know, I'm this, I'm that. I do this, I don't do that. I'm like, okay, I have no judgment about it either way. But the
We always have a
possibilities,
choice.
the possibilities, if you just keep the mind open to look, the possibilities will open up every day in a greater way.
Yeah. And we have a choice, right? And this idea that we don't, that's not really how it is. It, I suppose it's almost like enslaving or imprisoning or putting shackles on yourself to be like, I don't have a choice. It's this way. I'm stuck in this position or what have you. Um, you, in a sense, you put yourself under, you create your restriction with your divine power, even though you have infinite potential, that includes the potential to limit your potential, but only until you decide to stop doing that.
Seems to be right that we kind of learn that on a physical plane first, right? We I mean, there's been times in our life that a lot of people's lives where they thought physically, well, I can't do something, and then they went out and did it anyway. You know, set their mind to it, like, you know what? No, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna keep working and keep trying. There's countless stories of people doing things like that on a physical level, climbing mountains or some athletic events that seemed impossible. The 4 minute mile before it was done, it seemed impossible, but someone kept uh, that possibility in front of them until it happened. Then it opened up a greater possibility. Then more people did it. So we see that on a physical level, but I think that physical level is just to teach us that there's a greater aspect on uh, other levels of human existence besides just physical.
For sure, yeah. I answer my question, by the way. I was wondering how to make sense of the existence of darkness and negativity. And I know these are labels, but like what we hear about on Epstein's Island, things like that, serves itself. How is it that these things exist if we are all perfect? My answer, and that's just my answer, and it can change. What I see is, since we can create everything, we can create darkness. Otherwise, it wouldn't be true that we can create everything, and we wouldn't be God. And we are. Well, that's an interesting silence. That's fine. I was just wondering if you'd say something, and it's okay that you didn't. Let's it sink in. Well, that resonates to me, and perhaps, perhaps not with you, or perhaps I don't know.
I'm still looking. It's
That's all right.
sometimes I just step back and look, and because I don't know what is darkness.
I was being symbolic about it. I
Yeah.
guess I wasn't really being precise, was I? Um, it's an absence, right? It's a lack, an absence of light. It's a lack. It's limitation, right? There's unlimited, and then there's limited, infinite, and finite. And the finite must exist because the infinite includes the finite. That's another way of putting it.
Hmm.
But then again, that's just my perspective.
Yeah. No, that's why we have discussions about things. That's why it's important to find people you can talk to that don't have judgment, to just discuss things, whatever it is.
It works for me because it kind of unites certain the limited impression I'll have of the sort of perspective of the Course of Miracles and the kind of perspectives of the Law of One. Um, there's someone called Aaron Abke. He's quite a popular. I don't know if that's the way I pronounce his name or not. YouTuber about talking about spirituality, and he seems. My impression is that he has a very much a perspective more based in the Course of Miracles, and there's this perspective that's discussed of that ego doesn't exist; it's just an illusion. I have the impression that that's more the perspective from the Course of Miracles. Now, even fairly recently, I was angry at the idea because I was just like, I don't think we should just completely try to eliminate it, the ego, or even be like that it doesn't exist. I see it as more like a tool that just shouldn't be more in control. Like us, I guess I see it in a more Jungian way, I guess. But I suppose I don't need to defend that. It's okay if it doesn't resonate with me. I can take a subtly different, whatever view I want, really. Um, so I suppose here's a question: what's your perspective on ego? What is it? How does it work?
Wow, that's actually something I've thought about a lot because of Course in Miracles talks about it, and a lot of other material talks about the ego. And so I would sit back sometime and just look at this aspect of life and go, okay, so what's the ego here? Um, the only way I can describe it is that it's this voice that comes up that always seems to demand attention. Um, to me, I can't. It's really hard to describe because I'm really not sure what it is. It's not like I can look at the source, go, oh, there's where the ego is coming from. I don't know. I
So,
recognize when thoughts come up, negative thoughts, or however you want to describe it, or judgmental thoughts. I always kind of think, okay, that must be the ego. That's all I know what the ego is. I'm aware of my thoughts when those things come up. It seems to me in my experience of life that that must be what people describe as the ego, because it has to have some sort of uh, it has to be some kind of recognition of something happening in order to say, okay, that's the ego. It must have something to do with the mind and these thoughts that come up out of nowhere.
so the ego seems to pop up most, from my limited perspective, in the density or 3D, whatever you call it. Perhaps in some limited form in some animals, but and it seems to be triggered where people feel threatened, either their identity is threatened, and identity, in a sense, we're not truly who we are when we're incarnated on Earth. We are the infinite soul, right? So, if identity isn't kind of an illusion, ultimately, or a distortion, yeah, who we are on Earth, that's not, that's kind of an illusion. And yet, there's a reason there is incarnation at all. It's a distortion, but there's a, there's good reason for distortion, I believe. I believe that God, source, universe, whatever you put it, benefits from this, from there being, you know, different levels of existence where souls incarnate, get different experiences, come back to source, and there's source gains experience from this and grows, just as we do, right? And when we're at this third stage, even though it's an illusion, the point is that there's a veil of ignorance. We don't remember past lives. And we start off trying to survive. And we need to learn about there being more than that and moving beyond ego, beyond just the lower three chakras, learning to love and awakening. And third density is a journey to fourth density, just like every density is a journey to the next, I suppose. And maybe what ego is for on fourth density is as a toolbox rather than as something for survival. Because when you combine love with what the ego is, it ceases to be so much of a limitation. Now, technically, it's a distortion and a limitation if it even exists, but ultimately, without any distortions, there would just simply be everything as one. I mean, everything is one, but like there wouldn't be the universe as we know it. I wonder if I'm making sense to anyone else, but it felt right to flow in that way then. Do you think we'll lose ego altogether in fourth density?
I don't know. I don't know how that works.
That
Eventually, that as far as our linear time seems to progress, that it has to go away, and the true understanding of this create, this life becomes, more clear. The ego always seems to disappear the more you love yourself and love others, doesn't it?
I
Seems to be a
suppose
natural thing.
I suppose if everything I suppose it's all a gradual process and we'll find out really. Maybe we'll go completely once we've ascended to fourth density. Maybe in a lesser form it will remain and fade until we go to fifth density. I don't know how it works. What resonates with me is that there'll be something that the ego in a more balanced and healthy form in fourth density. But I might be wrong. And well, what is even right and wrong anyway, right? It's just simply that's my perspective. That's what I see. So, is there anything else you want to share about the A Course in Miracles? I'm sure there are plenty of things.
I thought it was valuable. I still think it's valuable. For me, in my aspect of life, it helped me, and it continues to help me. I continue to read it. There's some absolutely very beautiful things in there. There's some deep and profound things in there that that still help me unwrap some things in life that I need to see. So if I'm led, I go back and look at some things. Once in a while, I would pick it up and read it just because that seemed like the right thing to do. And especially if I was struggling or felt lethargic or stuck in a way, I would sometimes I would pick it up, and it was always seem to point in the right direction. And there's just some really beautiful aspects to it that helped me in my life. And if someone's led to it, then commit fully to it. That's what I would say. Don't do it halfway, because you can't do this course halfway or part way. Got to
It's
do it all
about
the
what
way.
resonates, right? And it's frequency and vibration. So if it vibrates, why not listen to that and follow that? If it doesn't, there will be a time when it does. I mean, it's possible or conceivable that someone might end up with a book, not be ready for it, but their friend might come across it in your house, be fascinated by it, and they might, awaken. So we don't know how the strings of fate or whatever, like, or the synchronicity, what have you, how it all fits together. Like, it has a way of surprising us, pleasantly surprising us when we harmonize more with with reality, with love, with, like, the more we harmonize, the more we raise our frequency, the more miracles come. And I suppose that's what synchronicity is, really, a miracle. There'll come a point where miracles are normal, really. We're used to the illusion of third density, I suppose.
Yeah, we see normal as conflict and having a lack of or something like that, instead of seeing love as normal. Sometimes start realizing, oh, this is normal. What I used to think is normal, that's abnormal.
Something just, I don't know if I wouldn't say, well, it's a vision, but something just came to me, right? So, there's a hero's journey and it's ultimately a circle, right? And when you get to the end, you basically start again. And they've got the densities. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then there's the idea of the octave. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, and then you repeat it, repeat it, repeat it. And it goes infinitely down, infinitely up. Though it does seem a bit limited just to look at it in a one-dimensional way, like a line. So the question is, why not make it a circle? Okay, it's a circle. Okay, are you aware of how the sun moves, how the planets move around the sun? The sun moves, right? Or one way or the other. And so we've got planets moving around. But since it's moving, the planets need to spiral just to come catch up, right? If the hero's journey is spiraling in a certain direction, let's say up, then imagine it's like a circle that spirals up. But you could, but if it's all repeats itself infinitely, then what if we, what if it's a spiral that spirals up with a curve in a circle? And what if that does the same thing too? Maybe by recognizing a circle, the wholeness, we can have a better perspective of how it all fits together. Like the Ouroboros, which is a snake eating its tail. Maybe that's everything spiraling back on itself. Does that resonate?
This is not my area of awareness, but I do remember that the raw material, the law of one, talks about that upward spiral. The way you're
Ah,
describing it, it talks about that spiral.
see,
That's why what
I
you,
don't actually recall that.
yeah. Oh, I do. Cause I, when you're talking, I'm like, that's really interesting that you're kind of seeing that, because that's how I believe the law of one describes um, some things is this
I've got more.
upward spiral. Yeah.
All right, but each of us is on our own trajectory, right? Each little piece of intelligent infinity is on its own trajectory. So there's one person going in a circle, another cell goes in a circle. That makes a sphere. And that's only if you go in 3 dimensions. So we've already got up from going from 1 dimension to just one line going up. We've already got to 3 dimensions. I mean, there's infinite dimensions, right? So it's so much more to learn about reality. No wonder Thoth was so fascinated in like the it was the idea he even said in the Emerald Tablet, like the the journey of knowledge, no, the journey of wisdom is eternal, basically. That's not the exact phrasing, and I can see why he set out on a journey of eternal journeying for knowledge, right? Because like there's always more to learn, and yeah, that's pretty cool. Because it's like that eureka feeling. It's really, I really like that. Do you ever get that?
Yeah. Yeah. With things, something comes to you and it's like, oh, wow. Like that. Yeah. Yeah. I think that that aspect of life is available to just about everyone if we learn to listen. It's like that voice or that things come when you start looking, and the way it comes to you is completely unique. What you see, your perspective. But I love that. Yeah, that happens to me, and those I call it revelation, if you will. That something you're not thinking about, maybe not aware of, maybe you've never read. It just comes to you like, and it makes you step back and go, oh wow.
Tesla talked about having lightning bolts. It feels like that.
Yeah, yeah, that's fun when that happens.
That's, I don't know what feeling that is. Is it love? Is it amazement? I don't know. But creation, learning, manifestation, these things, there's a joy in that. And without the limitation, it wouldn't have the same meaning. I like that I was relatively in darkness and then I'm coming out of that and discovering new things. And I feel like the catalyst helps us with our eternal journey. So, how do you feel about catalyst?
About catalyst.
Well, maybe that's not the right. Well, I'll put it another way. How do you feel about challenges and difficulties that you gain experience from? Well,
I appreciate.
that's a guiding. Sorry.
No, good question. I appreciate them more and more all the time when those things arise, and I can step back the moment that that occurs and go, okay, good. This is an opportunity to learn, to grow, to put into practice what I've learned. Because when you're learning in life, there will be tests. Things will come up because you've learned this. Of course, in Miracles goes through things like this, that you learn this, now you got to put it into practice. Okay. It's not just information. Information doesn't do anything. You can read 1,000 books. What does that do? No, there has to be an application of it in order to know it. That's one of the things that really started changing my life with my Christianity background is there's a lot of beautiful things in the Bible, verses that seemed to touch me in my heart, but I wanted it to be real for me. Like I want to be that way. I want to be this person with that has this as some of the writers describe the spirit of God and of power and of love and this immense faith. I want that. I don't just want to read it. I need to experience that myself and see it and witness to it. And man, those tests in life, they bring you those opportunities. When you're aware of that and go, okay, I see what's happening here. It may be something simple like the toilet overflowing that happened to my youngest daughter last
Oh
week.
yeah. Oh God.
Yeah, the toilet overflowed. That was her first experience with it. You know, she's 12. And I walked in and, and my whole mindset was, oh, this is just an opportunity. This is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to clean the bathroom floor because I hadn't cleaned it in, I don't know, it'd been a couple weeks, I think, since I'd really cleaned the floor. And to teach her things about the toilet, how it worked and how to fix that when it happened, you know, to get the plunger. And when you just look at it as an opportunity, there's nothing going wrong.
Yeah, and it's a great feeling when you see something and you observe yourself reacting different. That's a really nice feeling.
Yes, that's one of the most beautiful things in life, isn't it? Where something happens that maybe normally you would have gotten angry and then you just don't. It didn't come.
Mm.
Like, huh, anger didn't show up. I mean, it just wasn't there this time. I love those aspects of life when it's like something has just taken root and grown and it's there. It's just there now. Yeah.
Didn't Jesus talk about pumpkin seeds and something about they're like there's the they're so small, they're very small
Mu-
seeds,
Mustard
and
seeds.
yeah, that's it, mustard seeds, and they grow into these big trees, and they've got all everything, all the essence of the tree is within that tiny seed.
Yeah. That's a good illustration.
Yeah, I don't know why I said that, but I like that I did.
Yeah. Life is like that. You take a little bit of that spark within you, give it your attention, and that's really all it takes. It's about your attention, it's about looking at it. When you give your attention to something, you notice more about it.
Right. So what you can do is get that little ember and you cup your hands around it. You just blow. Right. I'm going to do this for sound effects. ASMR, right? You do that, and yeah, it's like you're nurturing a plant or you're nurturing a fire. I suppose a spark of consciousness is that. Well, whatever you call it, you're nurturing yourself and you're growing. Yeah. Um, and that's a wonderful feeling. Gardening's nice, isn't it? To the limited extent that I've done it, or you've got a pet, or you've got a child, and you see them grow and learn and develop, and it's like that with yourself. Why wouldn't it be? No wonder God loves us so much. It's all the same, right? I was curious if you were going to speak first, but I guess I lost that game of silence chicken. That's all right.
It's just,
The sound of silence, right?
yeah, the I've kind of lost the pressure to try to say something in life. If you're hosting a podcast, you have to kind of try to do that, but I don't always have something to say. So sometimes I'll just sit and until something natural arises.
Maybe that's the difference between having read the Course in Miracles and not having read it yet. How long you can sit in silence.
Oh, I've been practicing that. Oh, it's been fantastic to sit in silence. Yeah. I've always, I say, struggled with meditation. I haven't struggled with meditation because I'll set expectations. That's the only reason I've struggled with it. I've always enjoyed meditation, but it's taking on a new aspect in my life where I can sit for longer and longer periods and uh, and enjoy it. Or I say enjoy it. It's there's no effort in trying anymore, or there's less trying. I still find myself trying. Like, okay, I've only been sitting here 20 minutes, and my mind is just going ring, thinking about food and all this stuff, and but find myself enjoying the sitting still more and more in silence.
What about inner silence? Like not having that mind chatter. What do you, how do you, what's your progress been and how have you had that progress?
It's been an interesting one because I used to, like I said, set expectations. Well, I want my mind to be quiet. Well, that's an expectation, that's a goal. And slowly, I've learned that when it comes to meditating, I don't set any goals or expectations, meaning I don't try to quiet my mind because that's an expectation. And it's like my mind will revolt against that and make things louder. So, what I've learned is I can just sit and watch my mind go by like I'm watching a television. It's more of a curiosity.
Or the wind?
Like, oh, okay. Look, I saw, oh, all these thoughts are happening in front of me. Look, dun, 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 and just watch it happen. And instead of trying to not have the mind do anything, because I don't know how to quiet the mind. What is there like a technique for that? No, there's not. Like I can go, oh, I'm going to click the mind off now. I don't know how to do that. But if I just sit back and watch it with no judgment, kind of like what we've been talking about during this discussion, of just observe what's happening, it tends to kind of quiet itself. If I just sit there and be still and just look and not judge any thought that comes up, just observe it. Like, oh, okay, thoughts are coming up. Lots of thoughts are coming up, but I don't have to judge it or try to make it stop. And when I started doing that or learning that, I guess it became, I guess, more quiet and peaceful, where I've experienced times where there wasn't any thought.
So I suppose the more we're kind to ourselves, the more we heal, and the more we quiet the mind as a side product of that. And we can easily set goals or set these attachments to what we want out of spirituality. But that's missing the point. Um, and the surprises that will blow us away and will be wonderful, they won't be those things. All we're really doing is limiting what we can experience or holding us back. So the more important question perhaps is, how did you learn to stop attaching to the outcome?
I guess there were just a lot of things in my life that kept suggesting that, pointing to it. A Course in Miracles is one of those. You know, looking at my own aspect of life in an honest way. Like, okay, let's look at every expectation I've ever had where I had an expected outcome that didn't happen that way. What was the result? Well, disappointment and suffering. Oh, so I created my own disappointment and suffering by creating an expectation that didn't happen, which is what many spiritual books, teach, is that you create your own suffering. Well, I'm looking at my own life going, well, I'm just going to stop doing that. I'm going to stop having expectations because either I can't reach that expectation or my potential is much greater than the expectation that I've set. So if I don't have any expectations, then the possibilities just open up. So I don't set them anymore. Doesn't mean I don't plan, do things in life. When I microwave something or cook something in the kitchen or go to the faucet and turn it on, there's an expectation the water is going to come out, but I'm open to the possibilities, and I won't be disappointed if it doesn't come out the way I had planned.
Like if the lights go out. What if, okay, so what if someone keeps, well, they're practicing, what if someone is struggling, or perhaps isn't ready, perhaps, to cease attaching to outcome? Maybe they're gradually ceasing to attaching to the outcome, but how do we get to the point of not attaching to outcome? Because I imagine that there's a journey. We learn some lessons before we learn others. If someone's before the point of not attaching to outcome, like how do they get to that point?
Well, I'm looking at my own aspect of life in this from my experience. I had to experience it. I had to experience disappointment and suffering and then recognize that I was creating it myself because I was creating expectations, because I was attached to a certain expectation. Like, this must happen this way. And if it doesn't, then I was disappointed. And when I started looking at that in my own life, going, wait, that is what's happening. I am doing that. I'm doing that to myself. So I guess it's a matter of awareness and the willingness to sit back and look at your own life and look at expectations and realize when you're mad or angry or disappointed, to take a serious look at it. Like, am I creating this myself because there's an expectation of something that's not happening the way I think it should?
So it comes down from learning from mistakes, or not mistakes, but learning from challenges or catalysts, whatever you call it. But a lot of people, they don't have that self-awareness of what's happening. And then suddenly they're like, oh, this is what's happening. And then they start learning from things. So someone has to, you could say wake up, but someone has to start reflecting. And until then, perhaps their options are limited by themselves, that is.
Yeah, it's really changing the way to look at things. A Course in Miracles describes uh, like you were saying, as mistakes, saying that there are no mistakes, only lessons, only learning. But if you look at your life as a mistake, that's what you're going to believe in. If you look at what you've done as
Mm.
mistake, you're going to identify, yes, I'm a mistake or I've made mistakes. If you look at it as a lesson, like, oh, this is an opportunity, well, it changes the meaning of it, doesn't it? So
Identity.
you're
That's the
giving it,
key.
you're giving it the meaning you want it to have. You can give your life the meaning of I'm a mistake or I've made mistakes, or you can give your life a meaning of this is an opportunity to expand and to increase the possibilities. Once you make that decision to look at it differently, it becomes something different to you.
Okay, I've got two more possibilities to play with here. One is a student being a student of life. The other is the hero of your own story. What do you, what's your perspective on those?
So, I'm sorry, say the first one again. I was off on something else.
A student of life. Another is hero of your own story.
Yeah, I like being a student of life because there's no end to the learning and lesson, right? Each moment, each breath is an indication of life. It's an invitation to keep going and to learn more. So yeah, I think in that in that perspective, we're all students of life. Um, I don't know much about the hero's journey. I mean, I know about it as far as reading. Um, I don't look at it as being necessarily a hero because a hero is always someone that is typically looked up to, well, where they're on a different level or different plane. And of course, in Miracles would describe this, that you must look upon, another life, your brother, as it says, as your equal, not someone above you, not someone lower than you. You must see them as your equal. And in that sense, there's no hero.
I meant it in a very subjective way, I suppose.
Yeah, there's always that sense of you can define the word differently. You always look at people in your life that you admire and respect that uh, has done something that encourages you, inspires you to do the same thing or live a greater aspect of life. I would look at a hero in that aspect.
Is life a story, though? And if you look at stories, typically characters learn lessons. Typically, if you think about it, or I'm not sure if thinking is the right way, in a way, perhaps a character, the main character, the protagonist of a story, is a student of life. And in a way, our life is a story. So perhaps they're the same thing, just put differently. Story of life, student journey, yeah, student of life or protagonist's journey, hero's journey. Do you reckon they're the same?
Yeah, here there seems to be an aspect of a story, doesn't it? There's always new chapters and ups and downs. We like to portray that in books and movies and plays. I like what Eckhart Tolle said because he was talking about, somebody was asking him about this journey of life, and he said, well, we are on a journey. He said, but the entire journey is made up in the step you're taking right now.
Yeah, it's all the moment. And that's the thing. If you get too caught up in your journey as the hero, whatever, as your cat, I suppose it's losing sight of the tree for the forest. It's the other way around. It's like losing sight of the moment for the whole. Because, like, yeah, sure, there's a whole journey, but how can you journey if you're too busy? Well, how can you be in the moment if you're too busy looking the past or the future?
Yeah, trying to rewrite the previous chapters.
That
Or
said,
try to write the future ones before.
yeah,
Like it's got to happen this way.
that said, reflecting is a, there's a vital, reflecting is a vital part of learning. You do need to look at the past and the future, maybe more the past. You do need to look at it to learn, I would say. But whereas you don't want to be attached to the past, that's not, there's different ways of dealing with change. Some are helpful and help you grow, some hold you back, perhaps. I feel that we can actually finish the journey of this episode because it's been great and it doesn't have to be 2 hours every time. And yeah, in my journey as a podcaster and perhaps yours as too, I find I'm flowing more. And so I like how it went because I allowed it to go like this. I didn't have any notes whatsoever. I even I wouldn't say I made a mistake at the beginning, but I even stumbled over my words a little bit. And I was like, well, that'll do. All right, actually, that sounds like I'm not taking it seriously. But I feel like there's something genuine about that. No, I think it works better that way. It's like the imperfect perfection sort of thing. So how did you find it?
I thought it was wonderful. It was good talking to you again after a month or so. I think it's been a while. Catch up with you, see how you're doing, and I'm encouraged to see where you're going in life and what you're learning, and looking forward to having another discussion in the future when you uh, see what you learned from A Course in Miracles. But I loved our
Yeah, me
discussion
too.
today.
Yeah, that was great. And as for you, listener, you're on your own journey, and I hope you've learned something today. I hope you enjoyed it, and good luck on your journey. Bye for now.